why Canada sucks, or at least Niagara Falls does. And before you guys ask, why does your PUBG look like shit, it's because I have a shit computer, and I can't figure out how to not play this game in ultra wide, and I'm basically stuck on very low, getting like 40 frames a second. But anyway, back to what this video is actually about. Way back in the olden days of October of this year, I decided to join a few friends on a trip to the Great White North. Now, if you're wondering why would you leave the greatest city and country on the planet to go to what is essentially the 2.0 version of it? It was to play Yu-Gi-Oh! That's right. I blew over $1,000 to go play Yu-Gi-Oh! In Canada. And to answer your next question, yes, I'm serious. Yes, Yu-Gi-Oh! Still exists, and Blue Eyes does pretty much suck now. Essentially, my friend group plays card games competitively, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Happens to be one of them. There was an event happening in Niagara Falls, and we decided to all go because we had the ability to actually do it. So we said, fuck it, why not? So we flew from New York City to Toronto to Uber our way to Niagara Falls, and in my head, I thought Niagara Falls was a whole lot closer to Toronto than it actually was, but we'll get to that in a minute. Essentially, the flight cost like maybe $300 round trip, which really wasn't all in all that bad. On the flight, I attempted to enjoy my free in-flight beverage of plain black coffee, and I figured, I'm not going to get like a mixed drink or anything like that. It was like 10 a.m. at this point. I wasn't going to get like a juice because I don't like juices. I figured, if I get a black coffee, there's no possible way that they could fuck that up. But I was wrong. I think the container that they had the coffee in had like partially melted, or maybe the way they heated up the container or something, because when they made the coffee and gave it to me, it tasted like straight, hot, melted plastic. Like, I drank half of it. I took the first sip. I was like, whoa, maybe I'm just not used to like the way this cup is. Maybe it's a weird cup. I don't know. But every sip tasted like melted plastic, so I gave up halfway through. But I did drink half of it because I'm a fucking whore for anything that's free, especially food. And I figure that if it did, in fact, give me cancer, at least Canada has socialized medicine, and hopefully they'd take responsibility for it. And after we got off the plane, we get through to what is essentially Canadian TSA, their security, and I get asked the question of why I'm in Canada. I was too embarrassed to say that I had traveled over a couple hundred miles, maybe 1,000 miles, I don't know how fucking far it is, to play a children's card game. So I told them I was going to an expo, and they asked where it was. And like I said before, I don't know Canada's topography. I didn't know how far Niagara Falls was from Toronto. So I said, I don't know, maybe like 10 minutes south of here. And that was very dumb on my behalf, because I honestly should have explained it a little bit better. But apparently this was a huge red flag to the lady asking me the question of why the fuck I'm in her country. And then she hit me with, are you traveling with anybody? And I said, yeah, my friends. And I said their names, pointed to them in line, where they promptly pretended not to know who the fuck I was, which helped a ton. It really, really made the, border crossing that much smoother. After I ultimately admitted that I was playing a children's card game, opened up my bag and showed the lady the thousands of children's card game cards I had in my bag, she let me through, which was very, very nice of her. After that, there was apparently a secondary security guard who must have realized I was taking my sweet-ass time with the lady at the counter and promptly stopped me and all my friends. He looked at me and then pointed to my friend and said, "Where are you from?" Like this was some kind of terrorism quiz show. And my friend replied, New York? And he said it like a fucking question, which just really, really was the icing on the cake to this situation. And it got a little bit better, because then the guard pointed to the other friend I was traveling with, who then said, what he said, which was the right way to answer that question. It was the cherry on the icing on the cake. But then some weird ass shit happened. The guard looked at me, didn't say anything, nodded, and just let us go, which confused the fuck out of me. It was like that scene in Star Wars where Obi-Wan waves his hand and says, "These are not the droids you are looking for." But instead of that, it's like we waved our hands and we're like, we're not domestic terrorists. Please let us play card games. So we got through. It was super fucking weird. But that's when we found out that Niagara Falls was not a close Uber, but rather an hour and a half away by car. And that's when we found out that an Uber of that distance would essentially cost $170 US, which was insane. It was actually cheaper for us to rent a car and drive down ourselves, have the car for 3 or 4 days, and then drive back than it was to pay for 2 Ubers to and from the airport. That's where the minus started setting in because, you do budget for these trips, and the airfare costs already $300. The room cost a couple hundred as well, and right there, we were paying like $100 something each just to rent the car. So that felt great on my wallet. When we were renting the car, they asked us what kind of car we wanted, and we listened to them list a bunch of cars, which were all like economy size, and we didn't want that. We had a couple people, we had a lot of bags, so we didn't want to be like cramped in a car for 2 hours. So after a few rounds of going back and forth where they'd say a car type and we'd say no, my friend was handing in his credit card, because you have to, give a credit card when you're fucking renting a car. And they look at my friend's card, which had an American flag with a fucking screaming eagle picture on it. And the guy went, "Oh, you're American. We have a Ford Explorer." And we 100% took it. So after we drove for 2 hours, which was, I'm not gonna lie, like it took longer than expected, but that fucking Ford Explorer was nice. Like it had a heated steering wheel, which I didn't know existed, had like surround sound and like some crazy speakers, and it was great. For the first half hour of the trip, I connected my phone to it, and my other friend was scrolling through because I had Spotify, and he was going through songs he didn't want to hear and songs he wanted to hear. And then 30 minutes into the trip, he used all the mobile data I was allotted for the entire trip. So I was essentially on the Edge network, on 1G service for 90% of my trip to Canada. I was basically like a homeless person going from Wi-Fi hotspot to Wi-Fi hotspot for the rest of the trip. And if you've never been to Niagara Falls, like I hadn't before, I would really suggest not going, at least to the Canada side. Stay where you are. I guarantee wherever you're at is way better than the Canada side of Niagara Falls. The best I can describe it as is just generally minus. Like minus just all around. Not one thing is very bad, but everything is just kind of shoddy. If you expected to see a beautiful natural wonder, you're probably going to be disappointed. It's almost like a worse version of like a failing Las Vegas. It's like worse Reno, or if like you're from the East Coast, maybe like worse Atlantic City. It's really, really not great. Our room was also supposed to face the falls, but once we got into the hotel, they told us nope, they had changed our reservation but maintained the price because they knew we wouldn't cancel our fucking room because there's no other rooms. It's Niagara Falls. It's always popular. But if we wanted to, we had the awesome offer of paying $70 a night to have a window view of the falls. So we said no. We'll take the room with the view of all the IHOPs, please. And if you don't get that joke, because I'm assuming you haven't been to the Canada side of Niagara Falls, because why the fuck would you want to go there? That's the point of this whole video. I don't know what Canada's obsession with IHOP is, but there was like 10 per square mile. Every hotel had an IHOP in it, and then between those hotels with IHOPs in it, there was more IHOPs. They had an IHOP that was like 500 feet in the air, and I think it advertised itself as being the highest IHOP in the world. What the fuck? Why? If you don't know me personally, there's one place above all else that I hate with a burning passion, and it's IHOP. I don't have many personal rules. I'm not a picky eater, but not eating at IHOP is one of my core, unshakable principles. It's one of my core beliefs. I subscribe to the religion of never fucking eating IHOP because it is just bad. But it felt like it belonged to Niagara Falls, and not only one, but apparently like 20 of them. So it just added to the ambiance of the area. So now that we got our room, which had a nice view of IHOP, we decided to actually try and see the falls because we couldn't from our fucking room before we went to go play some children's card games with a bunch of grown-ass men. Niagara Falls wasn't that bad. I'm not gonna lie. It was actually pretty cool. Like, the Canada side's high, like you're on top of the falls. You're not like on the New York side where you get to look at it and it looks all pretty. From our side, you could see the New York side, which you could see that they had a better view, but you couldn't see the better view. But the falls did light up a bit, which looked kind of cool. We actually were able to sneak into an open room. We asked the room service lady if we could look at Niagara Falls from the room we would have had they not fucked up our reservation, and the lady was actually kind enough to let us do that. So we did get to see what our view could have been. And honestly, like from the hotel room, it was a way better view than ground level because the Canada side, like I said, you're not going to see the whole thing. You're only going to see like the top half of it. And so after we got all the touristy shit out of the way, we decided to actually go play some Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, if you're from America, whenever there's a large event, you usually have to go through an annoyingly large amount of security where you get wanded, you get bag checked, maybe a dog sniffs you a little bit. That's the best part. You can't pet them. It's a whole thing. But being that this was Canada and everybody's generally nice and nobody fucking has guns and they trust each other, there was no security at all. You could just walk in. And it felt great, but it made me feel kind of weird because all my life, every event I've gone to, I'm used to getting screened by security. I'm used to people being weary of you. I mean, half the fun of flying in the first place is to get a reach around from the TSA. And when you went here, everybody was nice. Everybody greeted you. It was weird. If you're from New York, nobody's nice to you unless they're trying to get money out of you. That's pretty much the way it works. Someone on the street comes up to you, says hi, tries to engage you in a conversation. They want some money. In Canada, it's the opposite. People just talk to you because they're actually interested in what you want to say. But I put that aside and we got to play some Yu-Gi-Oh! And after a hardcore 8 hours of me sweating into what is essentially cardboard crack, I got fucked by a judge misruling my opponent who essentially cheated me. And that cost me the game in what is essentially overtime. It felt like somebody had taken a literal shit on my chest. And I essentially had no chance of making the top cut the next day because the judge fucked me and I lost in time to a guy that cheated me. And instead of doing what I wanted to do, which was chuck my deck into the falls, kind of like how Yugi lost Exodia on that cruise ship, I decided to take a walk to the nearest convenience store because I didn't want to fucking eat IHOP. I just wanted some 7-Eleven, maybe a cheese dog or some shit. And I looked at the address and I found the cross streets and I did go there, but it was an hour walk each way. There was no convenience store closer than an hour's walk away, which is smart because they get you to spend money at the IHOPs. But I had an iron will. I was determined to not fucking eat IHOP. So I decided to walk the hour. On my way there, it started to rain about 10 minutes into the walk, which was great because I didn't have an umbrella and I had a down jacket on, which is basically just like wearing a sponge in the rain. But I was dedicated to my journey, my purpose to finding a 7-Eleven and not eating IHOP. And then Canada tried to test me once again, where I got literally shit on by a goose. That's right, I got shit on by a Canadian goose in Canada. At this point, I had been figuratively shit on, and now I've been literally shit on. But Canada could not break my iron will. I did not give up hope. I did not eat IHOP. I got to 7-Eleven, I got some Canada snacks, and I walked the hour back to the hotel, completely soaked, and with bird shit, wet bird shit, running down from the top of my head, on my hood, all the way down the back of my jacket. And that was still better than eating at IHOP. So after I went into a depressive slumber, the next day I went to the event but couldn't play because of the judge raw dogging me the day before. But I still did get some cool stuff, and all in all, it was an alright day. When you travel to other countries, especially if you have a hobby, it's really cool to see other people that are into what you're into. It's almost like a cultural bridge. It's really nice, honestly. I've gone to Texas, I've gone to Chicago. Canada was the first time I traveled internationally to play a children's card game. But the people there were the nicest part. I have no problems with the people of Canada. And all in all, they were generally nice. After that, there was nothing else to do. My other friends lost in the later rounds. The judge hadn't fucked them, but they just got some bad matchups, lost. And we all decided to get some sleep because we had to drive back to Toronto early in the morning to catch our 10 a.m. flight, which means we had to leave like 5 a.m. because we get to the airport at 7 to get through security. And that's where the extra fun began. As we were going through security, I got pulled aside by Canadian TSA. I finally got that reach around that I was looking for, that the American TSA agents just didn't give me. They searched me, all my belongings, then I had to explain why I had a large amount of children's trading cards in my bag. It wasn't that I had murdered a child and stolen their possessions, it was actually an active hobby of mine. I explained the event to the guy that was basically checking me, and he actually was familiar with it. He said, "Oh yeah, we get a bunch of weird, unique travelers every once in a while for that. We were just making sure you weren't smuggling weed back," which confused the fuck out of me. But apparently, the guy had to explain it to me. The event I went to coincided with the first weekend weed was legal in Canada. I had no clue of this, but apparently me being tired from a long drive made me look like the type of guy that would smuggle weed into the United States, which was great. I wasn't that delayed, and I didn't miss my flight. On the flight back, my coffee tasted better, which was already a step up, and I knew I was going back to the greatest place on earth. Not the United States, but rather New York City. But after that, it wasn't that bad. I got to fly back home and relish in the fact that I spent $1,000 to play and lose at a children's card game in a different country. And the icing on the cake was that apparently we got charged an extra fee for the room, which was a tourism fee, which is not described anywhere at all, which ended up being like an extra $70 a night per guest, which was great. That was like the icing on the cake. I got home and my friend told me, he's like, "Yo, they charged me like an extra, like couple $100 for a tourism fee." And I was like, yeah, that sounds like Canada. I roomed with you guys. Canada hates me. I'm sorry. So all in all, I suggest if you have to go to Canada, just don't go to Niagara Falls. Like, just don't do it. If you think you'd like to see Niagara Falls, look at a picture. It is 200 times better. You don't go $1,000 minus for no reason, and you don't have to eat at IHOP. You could just eat at your house, look at a picture of Niagara Falls on your computer, and it's the better experience. And if you stuck it through to the end, guys, I just wanted to thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know in the comments down below your thoughts if you too have been shit on by a Canadian goose in Canada, or if you had a trip to Canada you actually enjoyed. Let me know in the comments down below, guys.